The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Welcome back to another episode of the 15-Point Plan podcast. We are so thankful for you joining us today. My name is Ryan Greigg, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Jacqueline Smith. But today, Jacqueline, we are so excited because we have a really incredible special guest. I'd like to welcome to the 15-Point Plan podcast our guest, Andrea Jones. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I love getting to be on here and chatting with you guys today. I love your podcast, and I'm just excited to dialogue with you guys today.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've known Andrea for, I don't even know. I was trying to remember how many years I've known you for.
I think it's like 15.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Almost as long as I've been married to Phil. So pretty long time. And she's actually really grown, I think, in her calling since I've met her. And it's just been so fun to watch her journey. So Andrea is a registered nurse, and she's also a functional hormone practitioner. She's the founder of the Hormone Wellness Academy for Women and author and host of the Abundance Wellness podcast. And I've heard a lot of her podcasts, and of course I see her in person, and we talk a lot. And it's just so interesting how we talk so much on the 15-Point Plan about these daily habits and how they affect our ability to, self-regulate. And so I wanted to have Andrea on because she has some really great tools and information. I think that'll really, really impact people's lives. And I know that you're always learning and sharing. And so I'm just excited to learn and hear from you today too. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you? On a personal note, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that introduction. That was very, very, makes me sound cooler than I feel like I am, but I think that's all of us, right? So
you are so cool.
I'm not saying that from like a self-depreciating standpoint. I'm just like, it's just weird to like see it all in one place, I guess. But yeah, so I'm a registered nurse. I've known my whole life. I think I was 5 when I realized I'd watched a movie about a pediatric nurse, and I just knew instantly, like, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. And I went to nursing school, made it through just an incredibly rigorous nursing program, graduated, got my dream job in a hospital that I literally had wanted to work at since I was 5. And somehow ended up in my career, not anywhere where I started, but it's all benefited where I am now. So I eventually made the switch to holistic medicine almost 13 years ago. Or I had started to mentally make the shift of like, this isn't ultimately where I want to be. There's no box that fits what I feel like I'm called to do. Like there is no box, name, title, certification that's going to really encapsulate all that I wanted to do, which was really total person wellness, not just, giving antibiotics for an infection or things like that. And so much of my own health struggles, my own emotional struggles really informed those decisions of what is it that I'm not getting like from my practitioners that I really need, and then going out and learning that thing and then helping other people. So that eventually led to me quitting my job at the hospital, launching my business about 5 years ago. And I love it because I always get to be creative. I get to be the researcher that I am. I get to pull evidence-based practice. I get to, still follow like state guidelines and things like that, licensing guidelines, but really serve people in a way that benefits them. And so I think, when it comes to like these little points, these things that we do on a daily basis that help with self-regulation, we way overcomplicate it like 90% of the time. And then people just get stuck and they spin out and they're like, why even try? Right? Like, well, I guess I just need to go to more counseling, or I guess I just need more trauma work. And it's like, just drink your water. Like that's probably all you need. So I think just simplifying it for people, giving them a starting point is a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure. So if you had to pick, and you're familiar with the 15-Point Plan. So if you had to pick 3 of the 15-Point Plans, like you could only do 3, which would be those 3 for you?
Yeah, so I had to think about that a little bit because I'm like, gosh, they're all good. Like they're all just
Mhm.
really good things, but we have to have a starting point, right? And so
Yeah.
I would say just for myself, but also informed by the work that I do, with women, it's without question hydration, nutrition, and sleep. Like if we
Mhm.
can learn to prioritize those three things, that's going to give you a leg up, in almost every area of your life, if not every area of your life, hands down.
Wow. Wow. So talk to us more about that. Why those 3?
Yeah. So hydration, if we're talking about hydration, your body is, on any given day, somewhere between 75 to 80% water, meaning that and if you think about the cells of your body that are carrying nutritional information that your brain needs, right? Your brain needs it to function. It needs to get iron. It needs to get calories, glucose, like all of these things into your brain to actually function. So if you have this goal of, making 9 figures next year in your real estate business, but you're living off coffee and donuts and you're going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning because you're trying to close a sale
Mm.
and you don't remember the last time you had water like ever. You're not giving your brain and your body the actual nutrients that it needs. So if you think about hydration being the carrier that carries the nutrients into the cells of your body, into your brain, into your vital organs, um, if only from the standpoint of like you need to be hydrated to manage stress because you're not going to be flushing out stress hormones appropriately. Even if that was the only reason you chose to drink water, that would still be a really good reason. So there's that. That would be the number one reason why, we have to get hydrated. One of the things that I do, this may be news. I don't actually know if I've told you this, Jacqueline, but I work at a neurofeedback clinic. And so we do a lot of brain training for people, really optimizing their brain health. And we have noticed that if they come in dehydrated, they don't retain their training like people who are actually hydrated. So even just like on if we were to do like a simple case study of who does well, who doesn't do well, hydration puts you above your counterparts very easily
Wow.
with that.
That's fascinating. So literally a competitive edge if
It
you're
is.
hydrated.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we
Mhm.
haven't even talked about, like, how that impacts hormones, but, like, just on a
Yeah.
basic
Yeah.
cellular level, if you want your brain to function well, you have to
Mhm.
be drinking, and I think you've probably seen the memes that are going around about, like, how did we all survive the '80s? I never had a water bottle with me. It was like you had the water fountain in between classes, and you took a drink as fast as you could to go to recess,
Yes.
and somehow we're all functioning, but we were all massively dehydrated. So there is a truth to that for sure.
Yeah, so true. Okay, talk to us about sleep then.
Okay. So I could talk forever about sleep. And we've talked about this because we love our granny bedtimes and we joke about our granny
Mhm.
bedtimes.
Yes.
But the truth is that sleep is one of the most restorative functions like within our design that I believe we were created to sleep, and we were
Mhm.
created to sleep so that our body could restore. There's actually, and I'm going to totally botch the names. I'm not even going to try to like name it. There is a cellular process that happens in the brain that only happens within a specific number of hours of sleep within a certain time frame. So I have clients that, when I'm asking about their mood or their anxiety or their perimenopause symptoms or whatever, I ask them how they're sleeping and they say, "Oh, I get like 6 hours of sleep." And I'm like, "Not ideal, but like when are you getting those hours of sleep?" And they'll say, 12 to 7 in the morning. That's like the worst time to be getting sleep because you're not getting that like brain washing where the cells actually wash over your brain and detoxify and you literally brain dump while you're sleeping. So there is this cellular restorative process that happens while we're sleeping, but we also make neurotransmitters while we're sleeping. So those happy mood balancing like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine that helps our brain to actually function throughout the day, we make those when we're sleeping. And so, if we're not getting good sleep and we're expecting to be a high performer, or we're expecting to even like, maybe you perform really well at your job, but you come home to your spouse and you're
Yeah.
snappy and you're irritable and you can't pay attention to them because you just like hung on throughout the day.
Mhm.
and you're not prioritizing sleep, then that's going to be a big problem. And I think for most people that I talk to, and this was, if you had talked to like high performing anxious Andrea like 4 years ago, I would have said like, yeah, I'm staying up to like write my program or my course. I'm staying up until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And then I'm burning myself out during the day, right? Because we want to be more productive, but we're actually less productive by not getting good sleep. Like it feels counterintuitive, right? Like if I protect these 3 hours before midnight and I actually go to bed, between 9 or 10 o'clock, I'm losing time. But the reality is you're going to gain time because you're more productive, you're more efficient, you're more you're more regulated, you're not making as many mistakes. Like there's a lot of benefits to getting really good sleep.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I know a lot of people are really into these aura rings right
Yeah.
now, that track your sleep and everything. So how do we know if we are getting enough sleep or a good, restorative sleep?
Yeah, this is a really good question because I actually, I do have a few clients that use the Aura rings, and yet, they'll say like, "Oh, it says that I got, 6 hours of light sleep, or like 3 hours of light sleep, and 4 hours of REM sleep, or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, but how do you feel?" Like, because on paper or on your app, it's like, "Yay, good job, gold star," whatever the reward is. I don't actually know. I don't have the app or the ring, but there is some kind of like visual reward, right? But the question is always, how do you feel? Do you wake up rested? Do you feel like you need a nap in the afternoon? Do you feel like you cannot keep your eyes open by 8:30, 9 o'clock at night? That's going to be your biggest indicator of how, like, the quality of the sleep that you're getting, way more than any metric can show you. Because, like, I could sleep with my Apple Watch and it would say, you know, Andrea woke up 3 times, but I woke up because I turned over, and then I woke up, but I felt rested, energized for the day, then I got really good sleep. So it's always going to be, what is your daytime energy telling you about the quality of your sleep? More than the number of hours that you get or how many times you woke up. That's going to be, just in a really simple way, how to tell if you're getting good quality sleep.
It's interesting. I think a lot of people don't even know how they feel half the time because
Yeah.
we're so like medicated, caffeinated, all the aideds, and it's like we've lost touch with our bodies. And we did an episode a little about that. And it's hard to know when you're just plowing through day
Totally.
after day, muscling your way through.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that 100%. And I think it requires that, when I tell people, like, these are the 3 things I'm asking you to do, like, if we really want to shift these symptoms that you're having, the look on their face, I couldn't do that. Well, okay, let's talk about that. Why couldn't you do that? Well, because it would force them to slow down, right? And then we have to actually look at how we feel in our body and the fact that we're really just overcompensating probably for a lot of anxiety or stress or disconnection. So you're totally right in that. That's a very common, it's a very, just in our world, in like the work realms that we work in, um, to lean into that. And then we're just completely disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah. That's a whole episode in itself,
Right?
that maybe we'll have you back for. So,
Sure.
um, we packed a lot in. We still have nutrition to talk about. So tell us why that was your third. So if you could only choose 3 of them, you chose those 3. Why nutrition?
Yeah, I would say, I'm not going to go into like macros or what you should be eating or like, what diet you should be having, but just on a basic level, uh, if only for the standpoint of blood sugar regulation. Like that is the only reason I put nutrition in there, is because if that's the only thing that we're looking at is regulating your blood sugar, which then regulates your stress response, if that is the only like goal you have for 2024, you could be a different person by the end of 2024 just by regulating your blood sugar, not living off of foods that don't actually help to balance you out, if that makes sense. So making sure you're eating regular meals throughout the day and not waiting until 2 or 3 in the afternoon to eat something, not living off of just caffeine, to like get you through your morning meetings, but actually have some protein and carbs in the morning that actually will fuel your brain. And the other piece within that, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about anything but like blood sugar regulation, but the other piece within that is that you can't make neurotransmitters without food. You can't do it without living food, meaning like whole foods that, are not heavily processed. You can't expect to have a well-functioning brain, regulated emotions, if we're not actually taking care of these basic principles in our life. And I think we've gotten so used to just neglecting them and expecting our body to be okay and really, or our function, or our performance. And really our performance and our emotional health is telling us about the health of our body too.
Wow. We could probably have you on for, 20 episodes and not even crack, the surface. So Ryan, do you have any questions for Andrea?
Yeah, Andrea, this was really, really incredible. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all this information. I have two questions for you. One is a little bit more simple and one is maybe a little bit deeper, but the first question is in regards to hydration. How does somebody know they are hydrated? And are you recommending that your clients and people in general add anything to their water, electrolytes, salts, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the easiest way to tell you're hydrated is if your pee is clear, like maybe a hint of yellow, but should be pretty much clear, And when you're adjusting to being well hydrated from being dehydrated, you're going to be peeing a lot for a couple of days where it's every 30 minutes you feel like you have to go to the bathroom. But eventually that evens out to where your bladder's not flushing things out all the time. So the easiest way to tell is your urine should look like the water that you're drinking, basically. I do recommend, especially if you have a hard time eating a whole food based diet where you're getting a lot of antioxidants and a lot of nuts, berries, fruits, a wide variety of minerals through your food, that you do add something. I would start with minerals if it were me, just trace minerals that you can add to your water. They have capsules that you can buy that are a great addition. I would start there before I would do electrolytes personally for most people. Yeah.
So trace minerals prior to electrolytes. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about hydration, and I appreciate the fact that you use the urine test as a way to know that you're hydrated, because Jacqueline and I had a good giggle on that episode. My next question, though, might be a little bit deeper, but you mentioned that you were 5 years old when you realized that you wanted to work at the hospital that you went to work at. I also read that in 7th grade, you were voted most likely to develop the cure for cancer out of a bean paste. So it sounds like you've known what you wanted to do for a long time. But then you mentioned that at some point you realized there was no box of what you felt called to do of becoming a total wellness person. And what I heard was that you went out and you just made that box. So if somebody is feeling like you, where they have this really incredible skill or talent or valuable add to the world, but they don't fit into that box, what do you recommend is their first step to making that box that you made?
Whoa, that's a really good question.
I had to ask because I just saw that, you've known what you wanted to do since you were 5, if not prior, but the box wasn't there. So you made that. And I'm sure everybody on this is going to go, how can I make that box?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, parameters were important. Obviously I'm a licensed professional and I am required to report to somebody. I can't just be I'm a registered nurse, I do whatever I want, right? But at the same time, I'm okay, I know what I'm able to pull in from all of my training, which is, our core values, our code of ethics, all of those things. Those are still going to be my guiding compass. But then now there's this whole new structure I have to build that hasn't really been built yet. And so first recognizing that that's really scary. It's really scary to decide to go outside of that box. And two, I just started doing research on what's out there, what's available, if I had to boil it down to one question that I asked myself, it is, what is it that the client that I want to serve needs? What is it that they need me to know for them that I don't know yet? And get the training to do that, whether or not there's, a legitimate certification process, or I'm just going to go and do all of the research and make sure that I'm still within my scope of practice and like my foot's it's still in the box, like I'm still within the parameters and the guidelines, but I am serving differently. And I had to figure out a way to serve people in a way that felt ethically right to me now, like as I've grown and developed. And so you do have to get creative. You have to find the right people to connect with that maybe are 2 steps ahead of you. Mentoring is really important. And then just don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid of it looking different than what you thought it should or could look like. Cause I mean, most of it is terrifying. The whole thing is terrifying until you get to a place where you really just love what you do and it was all worth it, but, I think for me, realizing that the box wasn't there and I just had to go make one, brought a lot of freedom, actually.
So a little bit of fear, a little bit of scariness, but then realizing it's all worth it at the end. And then if we just keep chipping away, find a mentor, like we've talked about, Jacqueline, of a mentor that can help us get there. This was a really great conversation. Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a privilege.
Tell us and our listeners, where do they find you? How do they get a hold of you if they want to learn more from you?
Yeah, so probably the best place to find me is on Instagram. I'm on there pretty regularly. So at Abundant Wellness with Andrea. You can always find my website, which is www.abundantwellnesswithandrea.com.
Thank you so much for coming on here. And see, guys, there's actually scientific evidence that backs these 15 points. So I'm really thankful for everything that you shared, and I'd love to have you back on the show sometime in the future. And as always, you can find our Facebook group if you want to interact more with Ryan and I. It's 15 Point Plan on Facebook. And Ryan leads a call every Wednesday at noon. So if you want to dive deeper into the 15 Point Plans, you can find us in that group and he'll share the link in there. Ryan, you want to close us out?
I just want to thank Andrea again for joining us. This was a really incredible conversation that had a lot of value. So I hope our listeners maybe listen to this one a couple times, because I think they could take away a lot of information that will help them with their health and their wellness, but also on how to create that own box. Because I know a lot of our people out there are entrepreneurs, they are business folks, and they have some really cool ideas that would impact and change the world. So if that box isn't out there, just take a tip from Andrea and make your own box. And thank you again for everybody for listening. Follow us on all the other platforms, winmakegive.com. And until next time, we'll see you in a week or so. Thanks, everybody.
See you, everyone.